The last thing I packed was a photograph. Not clothes, not documents, not the things you are supposed to grab when you are leaving a place that was never really yours to begin with. Those were already in the car. Lily was already buckled in, her yellow Easter dress wrinkled from a night that had taken everything out of both of us, her head tilted against the car seat at the angle it always goes when she is fighting sleep and losing. I went back inside for one thing. The photograph was on the kitchen counter. Me at 3 years old, sitting on my father's shoulders, both of us laughing at something outside the frame. On the back, in my grandfather Gerald's handwriting, Jerry and his little girl, Summer, 1997. I had never seen it before that night. My mother had kept it hidden in a shoebox in her closet for 29 years, hidden like contraband, like proof of something she was not supposed to have. I took it off the counter, and I walked out of that house, and I closed the door behind me, and I did not look back. Not because I was not hurting. I was hurting in ways I did not have words for yet. Not because I was not afraid. I had been afraid my entire life in that house, and the fear had simply become so familiar I had stopped recognizing it as fear. I did not look back because for the first time in 32 years, I understood that there was nothing behind me worth turning around for. My name is Selena. I am 32 years old. I work nights at Mayfair General, Medical Surgical Unit. I am a registered nurse and a single mother, and the woman who spent 32 years trying to earn something that was being stolen from her the entire time she was trying to earn it. This is the story of what they took, what I walked out with, and why I never looked back. Lily is 6. She has my jaw and my stubbornness and a laugh that sounds like a screen door in summer. Her father moved to Oregon 2 years ago and sends a check sometimes. So it has always been me and Lily. Studio apartment, 12 minutes from the house I grew up in. The Thornton house on Linden Street in Collier, Georgia. 2 stories, wraparound porch, a magnolia tree my grandfather Gerald planted when he and my grandmother Ruth moved in back in 1965. The kind of house a whole town points at and says, that has been in the family. I grew up believing I was part of that family. What I did not know was that my mother had been quietly, carefully, deliberately making sure my father believed otherwise since before I was old enough to understand what was being done to me. She had told him a lie in 2001. She had handed it to him like a gift and watched him unwrap it and use it against me for 25 years. She had stood beside me at every holiday table, every birthday, every ordinary Tuesday, watching my father treat me like something he had agreed to tolerate, and she had said nothing. She had kept her mouth closed and her secret closed because she had decided that her own safety was worth more than 25 years of my life. 25 years. I want you to hold that number for a moment, not as a statistic, as a life. 25 years of a man using a lie to keep his own daughter at arm's length. 25 years of half-finished sentences and a word called family used like a gate with only one key. 25 years of a woman cooking the meals and paying the money and showing up every single time, convinced that if she just kept being useful, they would eventually let her in. They were never going to let me in because the gate was built on a lie. And the lie belonged to my mother. And she had decided to keep it long after the damage had been done, because admitting it meant admitting what she had chosen to do with it. My father, Gerald, was not a gentle man. He was not a violent man either. He occupied a particular middle ground that is harder to explain and harder to leave because it does not leave marks anyone can see. He wounded with omission, with the thing he almost said, with the word family in his mouth like a verdict he could revise at any time depending on who was asking. Travis, my brother, was 29 years old and lived in the big room upstairs in the Thornton house without paying rent. My father looked at Travis the way you look at something you made and are proud of. He looked at me the way you look at a problem that resolved itself without your help and that you are mildly grateful for, but do not feel obligated to celebrate. I work nights 3 times a week, sometimes 4. Lily slept at Grandma Ruth's on those nights. Ruth was 82 and barely 5 feet tall, and she kept a small yellow chair pulled out by the door every night before I even knocked, because Lily was coming. And Lily was always welcome, and Ruth understood without being told that some things do not require a policy. That arrangement was the hinge my entire life swung on. My father knew it. He had located the single point of pressure in my whole existence, and he pressed it without apology or hesitation. He charged me $400 a month for access to it, called it a household contribution. I had not lived in that house since I was 19 years old, but I paid it because losing access meant losing nights, and losing nights meant losing my differential pay, and losing that meant Lily's school and our apartment, and everything else unraveling in a sequence I could not stop once it started. I found out later he was telling my mother it was $200. He kept the difference every month for 4 years. I did the math once and felt hollowed out. And then I put it down, because there is only so much you can reckon with at one time before you have to choose what to carry and what to leave on the ground. 2 weeks before Easter, he called me to the house and told me it was going up to $600. He said it the way you read a number off a form. No apology, no acknowledgement of what he was doing. When I told him I already paid more than Travis and did not even live there, he looked at me with the expression he always used when I stated a fact he found inconvenient. Travis is family, he said. That is different. That word again. I had been hearing it my whole life, shaped around a silence where my name should have been. Family, with a fence around it. Family that meant everyone in the room except the one person who kept cooking the dinners and writing the checks and staying. I said yes to the $600. I wrote the check that evening in the kitchen while Travis walked through without a word and took a beer from the fridge and went to the backyard like nothing was happening. Because for him, nothing was. A week before Easter, I stopped by to pick up Lily's jacket and heard Travis in the hallway on the phone. He was talking to his girlfriend, Megan. He did not see me. His voice had the easy confidence of a man who has already decided something and is simply waiting for everyone else to catch up. Once the house is mine, he said, Grandma can move to the back room, or Selena can take her. Like Ruth was furniture. Like 61 years of a woman's life in one house was an inconvenience to be reorganized around someone else's renovation plans. I stood in that doorway with the pink jacket in my hand, and I did not move for a long time. Then I buckled Lily in and drove home, and sat with what I had heard until it settled into something I could name. My brother was going to get that house. My father had decided it. And the story he was telling himself to justify it required me to be less than I was. Less than a daughter. Less than someone with a claim on 32 years of showing up at every table and every crisis and every holiday nobody else wanted to organize. 3 nights before Easter, Aunt Jolene called. Her voice was low and careful, the voice of a woman choosing each word before she released it. "Has your daddy mentioned anything about the house?" she said. "No, why?" She was quiet. "Just be there Sunday," she said finally. "Sit near Mama. Promise me." I promised. I wrote it on a sticky note and pressed it to my bathroom mirror. I did not understand it, but something in her voice felt like a door being held open just wide enough for me to walk through if I moved at the right moment. The day before Easter, I saw my father coming out of the Harmon and Burke law office on Main Street with a large brown envelope under his arm. He did not see me until I called out. His face went flat. "None of your business," he said, got in his truck and drove away. I stood in the parking lot with 4 bags of groceries for a dinner I had been cooking for this family every Easter for 12 years. Hands full. They always were. Easter morning, I was awake before 4 after a full night shift. Oven going by 6, mac and cheese assembled by 8, biscuits rising, casserole in its dish, sweet tea steeping in Ruth's big glass jar by 10. My mother came in at 9:30 and set out napkins and plates in 15 minutes, and then went to the living room and turned on the television. Travis arrived at noon with a $9 bottle of wine, sticker still on it. My father looked at that bottle and said, loud enough for the kitchen to hear, "Now that is a man who knows how to show up." 6 dishes on my counter, 7 hours on my feet. Not one thank you from anyone. By 5 o'clock, 22 people were at the table on the back porch. String lights I had hung myself that morning. Gerald at the head, in a white button-down shirt he had never worn to a family dinner before, pressed and deliberate, a man dressed for something he had planned. Grandma Ruth at the far end, with her cracked brown leather purse on her lap. Not beside her, not under the chair, on her lap, both hands resting on top of it. A woman at a gate who has checked everything twice and is simply waiting for her name to be called. Grace was said. I peeked. Gerald's eyes were open and on me. Then he stood up. "I have an announcement," he said, "before we dig in. Travis is getting the house. Papers are drawn up." He said it flat, final, already done, the way you read a weather report, the way you close a door you have been planning to close for a long time. I kept my voice even. "Dad, what do you mean by real family?" He turned his whole body toward me. He did not lower his voice. He wanted 22 witnesses to what he was about to do. "You know what I mean," he said. "No, say it clearly." 32 years he had been counting on me to back down at this moment, to go quiet, to fold the way I always folded. Every version of this moment across every year of my life had ended the same way. The question retreated. The silence held. The gate stayed closed. Not tonight. He looked at the table and then back at me, and he said it, out loud in front of everyone, including my daughter. "You were never really part of this family anyway." He tilted his head toward my mother. "Ask your mother why." 2 seconds of silence so complete I could hear the string lights humming. Then the fork. My mother's fork slipping and hitting the plate and bouncing onto the table. Her hand still open, her eyes down. She did not pick it up. She did not look at anyone. And then the sound that reached through everything else and found me somewhere deeper than the rest of it. "Mommy." Lily pulling my sleeve. Yellow Easter dress. Small fingers. Her voice right at the edge of breaking. "Mommy, are we not family?" 22 people heard my 6-year-old daughter ask that question at an Easter table under string lights I had hung myself that morning. I picked her up and carried her to Jolene. Jolene opened her arms without a word. I walked back to my place, and I did not sit down. "You have been hinting at this my whole life," I said. "Say all of it, right now, in front of everyone." He gave me the story, delivered like a verdict. "Your mother told me the truth 25 years ago. You are not my biological daughter. I raised you anyway." He spread his hands like a man expecting applause. "But this house is Thornton blood." I looked at my mother one last time. "Mom, is it true?" "I am sorry, Selena," she said, not a denial. An apology from a woman who was sorry she had been found, not sorry for what she had done. And then wood on wood. A chair pushed back at the far end of the table. Grandma Ruth was standing, spine straight, 82 years old, rising like gravity had given her the night off. Both hands flat on the table, every head turned. 22 people watching a woman barely 5 feet tall hold the weight of an entire room without flinching. "Sit down, Gerald." "Mama, this doesn't—" "I said sit down." He sat, the boy in him moving before the man could think. She reached into the cracked leather purse, pulled out an envelope, yellowed, soft at every fold. She held it up just enough for the table to see. 25 years I kept this. Her voice clear the way a retired teacher's voice goes clear when the room finally goes still. 25 years I watched you treat that girl like she was something you had settled for. She looked only at Gerald. I promised Harold I would wait until you showed everyone who you really are. She set the envelope on the table between the ham and the casserole, right on top of the dinner I had been cooking since before the sun came up. Open it, Gerald, or I will. He grabbed it, tore it open, lined notebook paper, blue ink faded to gray at the folds. A letter. He read it to himself, and I watched his face travel through anger and confusion and arrive at something I had never once seen on my father's face. Fear. Ruth spoke to the table, not to Gerald. That letter was written by your wife to a man named Carl Jessup in 2001. It says, and I know it from memory, he will never find out about Travis. Gerald thinks the boy is his. That is all that matters. Travis made a sound without a name. Ruth reached into the purse again. A second sheet, printed, clinical, a company logo at the top. After Harold passed, I ordered a DNA kit online. I swabbed myself. One night while Travis was sleeping upstairs, I took hairs from his pillowcase. I used Gerald's old brush from the hall bathroom. 6 weeks later, I had the results. She paused and let the room catch up. Gerald and Travis are not biologically related. The screen door slammed behind Travis. Gerald stood holding 2 pieces of paper that had taken apart everything he thought he had built and owned and arranged. Ruth sat back down and picked up her water glass, and her hand was perfectly steady. Now, she said, about this house. This house is in my name, always has been. That piece of paper from Harmon and Burke is worthless. You cannot transfer what you do not own. Gerald set the deed papers on the table gently, like something fragile, because it was. His entire plan, printed on paper that meant nothing. $1,200 in legal fees for a document that could not do what he needed it to do. A deacon seat at First Baptist he would lose within 2 weeks. In a town like Collier, that seat was a public office, and he lost it the way you lose a public office. Publicly. I turned to Gerald before I left. No anger, nothing left to prove. I am your daughter, Dad. I always was. But after tonight, I do not need you to believe it anymore. I carried Lily through the kitchen that smelled like everything I had cooked since 4 a.m, out the front door. I went back once for the photograph on the counter, the one my mother had hidden for 29 years. Me at 3 years old on Gerald's shoulders, both of us laughing, my grandfather's handwriting on the back. I took it because it was mine. It had always been mine. She had just been holding it. I closed the door behind me gently, and I walked to my car, and I did not look back. The drive home was 12 minutes. Lily fell asleep at minute 3, one hand still holding the collar of my blouse. I drove in complete silence. No radio, no phone, just the road and my daughter breathing, and the feeling of something very old and very heavy finally releasing its grip on the back of my neck. They stole 25 years from me. Not with violence, not loudly, with a lie told in private and maintained in public, and carried through every holiday and every dinner table and every half-finished sentence for a quarter century. They stole 25 years with silence and cowardice and the particular cruelty of people who know exactly what they are doing and choose to keep doing it because stopping would cost them something. My mother chose her safety over my birthright. My father chose a lie over his own daughter. And they both stood close enough to look me in the eye every single day while they did it. I stopped writing checks to a man who pocketed half and called it family obligation. That is $4,800 a year I keep now. Enough for a 2-bedroom apartment where Lily finally has her own room. She picked the paint color herself. Mint green because it looks like toothpaste. I stopped cooking for people who never said thank you. I stopped asking, "Am I enough?" from people who had already decided the answer and were never going to change it, no matter what I cooked or paid or carried. Grandma Ruth still watches Lily on my work nights. She will not take $1. That is what family does, she told me. The real kind. The photograph is on my refrigerator now, right next to Lily's drawing of our apartment. Me at 3 years old on my father's shoulders, both of us laughing at something outside the frame. I look at it sometimes in the morning while the coffee is brewing and biscuit is circling my feet and Lily is still asleep in her mint green room. I look at it and I think about the woman in that house in 1997 who did not yet know what was being planned around her, who did not yet know that a lie was already being constructed that would follow her for 3 decades, who was just a little girl on her father's shoulders, laughing at something in the summer light. I look at it and I feel something I did not expect to feel. Not anger, not grief, not the old hollow ache of a door that never opened. I feel like I got her back, that little girl on his shoulders. I walked out of that house with my daughter in my arms and a photograph in my hand, and I never looked back. And I got her back. That was always going to be enough.